She was supposed to die that night, hung from a rope in a storm, 8 months pregnant. But when the rain stopped, she was still breathing. 3 months earlier, her husband, a millionaire developer, was already planning her accident. The life insurance, the mistress, the perfect crime, until the night he threw a party to celebrate his new beginning. And she walked in, alive, holding the baby he tried to kill. What happened next didn't just destroy his career, it destroyed his entire world. Stay until the end. You won't believe how she takes back her power. If this story hit you, hit that like button, drop a comment, and share it. Someone out there might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe. More true crime dramas like this are coming every week. Rain hammered the abandoned construction site like bullets against concrete. Lightning split the sky over Chicago, illuminating a scene that would haunt the first responders for years. A woman hung from the scaffolding, her white dress plastered to her pregnant belly by the storm. Her body swayed in the wind, lifeless, a grotesque pendulum marking the seconds between thunder and lightning. James Crawford's black Mercedes skidded through the mud, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. He was already moving before the car fully stopped, his $50,000 suit forgotten as he sprinted toward the scaffolding. His hands shook as he cut the rope. She dropped into his arms, heavy and cold. He laid her on the ground, started compressions. Water streamed down his face as he worked, counting out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her chest didn't rise. Come on, come on. He tilted her head back, breathed into her mouth. Once, twice, nothing. More compressions. His arms burned. Rain filled his eyes. He couldn't tell if he was crying or if it was just the storm. Then her belly moved. The baby kicked against his hand during a compression. She's still fighting, he whispered. Fight with her. He breathed for her again, pressed her chest again. Her eyes flew open. She gasped, coughing water and air in equal measure. Her hand went immediately to her stomach. James grabbed his phone with shaking fingers. I need an ambulance at Prestige Heights construction site. Yes, she's breathing. Pregnant. 8 months. Attempted murder. Send police. The woman stared up at him, rain washing the horror from her face. Her lips moved. Marcus, she whispered. James looked toward the woods, where 2 figures had fled moments before, where Marcus Reed and his mistress had left this woman to die. I know, he said quietly. I know everything. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The woman closed her eyes, one hand on her belly, the other gripping James's sleeve like it was the only thing anchoring her to life. My baby, she breathed. She's strong, James said. Just like you, Sarah. 3 months earlier, Sarah Mitchell stood in the kitchen of her new home, unpacking boxes that seemed to multiply overnight. The house was beautiful. 2,500 square feet of marble countertops and hardwood floors. A chef's kitchen she'd never use. A home office she'd never need. She'd given up her job for this. Her $120,000 salary. Her corner office. Her independence. Love required sacrifice. Marcus told her that every day. She placed her hand on her belly, 5 months pregnant now. The nausea had finally passed. The exhaustion remained. You're up early. Marcus appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his Tom Ford suit. Tall, handsome, perfectly groomed. He'd been awake for hours. He was always awake before her, always dressed, always in control. Couldn't sleep, Sarah said. The baby's active in the mornings. He crossed to her, placed his hand over hers. For a moment, she saw the man she'd fallen in love with, gentle, attentive, present. Then his other hand moved her prenatal vitamins from the windowsill to the counter. You keep forgetting these, he said. I'll put them by your coffee maker so you won't miss them. I remember to take them, Marcus. Do you? His voice was still soft, but something sharp lived underneath. You forgot yesterday. I counted. Sarah's stomach tightened. He'd counted her pills. She opened her mouth to respond, but he was already pulling out his phone. I ordered you breakfast. Protein is important for the baby's development. It should arrive in 20 minutes. I was going to make eggs. I know what you were going to do. He kissed her forehead. That's why I'm taking care of you. He left for work before the food arrived. Sarah stood in the beautiful kitchen, surrounded by beautiful things, and felt the walls closing in. She'd invested her entire $200,000 savings into their future, into his business, into this house, into their life together. She had nothing left that was just hers, except the journal hidden under the mattress on her side of the bed, the one Marcus didn't know about. Sarah picked up her phone, then put it down. Marcus had insisted on a shared phone plan to save money, he said, so they could always reach each other. She knew he could see every call she made, every text she sent, every website she visited. Sarah placed both hands on her belly and felt the baby kick. "I'm doing this for you," she whispered. "A family, a father, stability." The baby kicked again, harder this time, almost like a protest. Sarah pushed the thought away and started unpacking another box. Marcus Reed stood in his office on the 47th floor of the Hancock building, staring out at Lake Michigan. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. The view was better than the news. His business was dying, slowly, methodically, inevitably. Prestige Heights, his luxury development project, was supposed to be his masterpiece. 40 units of high-end condos with lake views, investment returns of 300%. Instead, it was a hole in the ground hemorrhaging money. The door opened without knocking. Only one person had that privilege. Vanessa Hartley walked in wearing Chanel and confidence in equal measure. Her dark hair was pulled back in a flawless bun. Her makeup was editorial perfect. She looked like money because she'd been born into it. $8 million from her trust fund. All of it now buried in the Prestige Heights Foundation. "The Harrison Group called again," Vanessa said, closing the door behind her. "They want their $12 million by Friday or they're filing criminal fraud charges." Marcus turned from the window. "We don't have $12 million. "I'm aware." Vanessa sat on the edge of his desk, crossing her legs. "What about Sarah's money?" 200,000. It helps. It doesn't solve." "And the insurance?" Marcus picked up a folder from his desk. "Life insurance policy, I got the $5 million. Beneficiary, Marcus Reed. Co-beneficiary, Vanessa Hartley. Insured, Sarah Mitchell. Double indemnity for accidental death," Marcus said quietly. $10 million total. Vanessa studied him with those cold, calculating eyes he had fallen for 2 years ago, back when she was just another investor, before the money ran out, before they became something else. "Can you actually do it?" she asked. Marcus thought about Sarah, sweet, trusting Sarah, the way she looked at him like he was her entire world, the way she'd given up everything for him without being asked, the way she'd signed the insurance paperwork without reading it. "Can you?" he countered. Vanessa stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. "We're not good people, Marcus. We stopped being good people when we embezzled from our investors. The only question now is whether we're strong enough to finish what we started." She left. Marcus turned back to the window. Below, the city stretched endlessly. Millions of people living their small, insignificant lives. Sarah was one of them, replaceable, forgettable, an obstacle between him and survival. His phone buzzed again. Text from Sarah. "Baby's kicking. Wish you were here to feel it. Love you." Marcus deleted the message and called his lawyer. "I need to make some changes to my will," he said. That evening, Marcus came home with flowers and Thai food from Sarah's favorite restaurant. "What's this for?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "Do I need a reason to celebrate my beautiful fiancé?" He'd been doing this lately. Explosive anger followed by grand gestures, criticism wrapped in concern, control disguised as care. Sarah wanted to believe this was the real Marcus, the one who brought flowers, not the one who counted her vitamins. They ate dinner. He told her about his day, editing out Vanessa and the financial collapse. He asked about her doctor's appointment, memorizing details he could verify later. After dinner, he brought out a bottle of champagne. "For you," he said, pouring sparkling cider into her glass. "And for me," he raised his glass, "to our future." Sarah raised hers, but something in his eyes made her pause. A calculation, a coldness. "Marcus, is everything okay with the business?" His smile froze. "Why would you ask that?" I heard you on the phone earlier. You sounded stressed." "You were listening to my calls?" "No, you were spying on me?" His voice rose. The champagne glass trembled in his hand. I work 18-hour days to provide for you and our child, and you repay me by spying? Marcus, I wasn't. He threw his glass. It shattered against the wall, champagne running down the white paint like blood. Sarah flinched, both hands going protectively to her belly. Marcus stared at the broken glass, at the wall, at his hands. Then he crumpled. I'm sorry. He dropped to his knees, crying, I'm so sorry. Work is just, it's killing me, the pressure, the stress. I don't mean to take it out on you. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pressed his face to her pregnant stomach. I love you so much. Both of you. I'm terrified of losing you. Sarah's hands hovered over his head, shaking. This was the third time this month. The explosions were getting closer together. The apologies were getting faster. She ran her fingers through his hair because that's what you did when someone you loved was hurting. But that night, after he fell asleep, Sarah downloaded a voice recording app on her phone. She created a password Marcus couldn't guess. She started a file labeled shopping list, and she began to record everything. Sarah found the insurance policy on a Tuesday afternoon. She wasn't snooping. She was looking for their marriage license application in Marcus's study. They needed it for the wedding planner. The wedding, 3 months away, after the baby came, when Sarah would officially become Mrs. Reed. The folder was mislabeled. Wedding documents, it said. Inside was a life insurance policy, $5 million. Beneficiaries, Marcus Reed and Vanessa Hartley. Insured, Sarah Mitchell. Sarah's hands went numb. She read it twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. Marcus had taken out a life insurance policy on her. $5 million if she died, double if it was an accident, and he had listed his business partner as co-beneficiary. Vanessa, the woman who looked at Marcus like she owned him. The woman who'd been at their house 3 times this month alone. The woman whose perfume Sarah sometimes smelled on Marcus's shirts. Sarah took photos of every page. She buried the folder exactly where she found it. She walked calmly to the bathroom and vomited. When Marcus came home that night, she was cooking dinner, smiling. Normal. How was your day? He asked, kissing her cheek. Quiet. The baby slept most of the afternoon. How was yours? Stressful. Vanessa's coming to dinner tomorrow night. Wear something nice. She's crucial to our future. Our future. The words tasted like poison. Of course, Sarah said. I'll make that salmon she likes. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. You're perfect. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay next to Marcus, listening to him breathe, wondering if he dreamed about her death, if he'd already planned it. If the brake failure on her car last month wasn't an accident, she'd crashed into a barrier doing 60 miles per hour. The police said it was driver error. Her car was totaled, scrapped before she could question it. Marcus had bought her a new car, insisted she use his mechanic, insisted on paying for everything, insisted on control. Sarah slipped out of bed at 3 in the morning. She went to her laptop and searched for her college roommate, Rebecca Thompson, the one who'd moved to New York, the one who'd warned her about Marcus. He's too perfect, Rebecca had said at their engagement party. Nobody's that perfect. Sarah had defended him, ended the friendship, cut Rebecca out. Now she typed out an email. Rebecca, I was wrong. I need help. Can you call me from a number Marcus doesn't know, please? She hit send before she could reconsider. Then she went back to bed, curled up next to the man who might be planning to kill her, and pretended to sleep. The next evening, Vanessa arrived in a black dress that cost more than Sarah's monthly salary used to be. She brought wine, flowers, and a smile that never reached her eyes. Sarah, you're glowing, Vanessa said, handing her the flowers. Pregnancy suits you. Thank you. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Marcus took Vanessa's coat, his hand lingering on her shoulder. They exchanged a look that lasted 1 second too long. Sarah pretended not to notice. She was getting good at pretending. Dinner was performance art. Sarah played the grateful fiancé. Marcus played the devoted partner. Vanessa played the supportive colleague. They talked about the Prestige Heights project, how successful it would be, how the investors were thrilled, how everything was perfect. Sarah knew they were lying. She'd seen the collection notices, the threatening letters, the folder marked legal action in Marcus's desk. Sarah, Marcus tells me you were in marketing, Vanessa said over dessert. You must miss working. It was a test. Sarah recognized it. Sometimes, Sarah said carefully, but the baby is my priority now. Of course, Vanessa sipped her wine. Still, you gave up a significant career. 120,000 a year, wasn't it? Marcus tensed. Sarah felt it from across the table. It was the right choice for our family, Sarah said. And you invested your savings in Marcus's business. $200,000. That's quite a leap of faith. The room went silent. Sarah's heart hammered. Vanessa, Marcus said quietly. That's inappropriate. Is it? Vanessa set down her wine glass. I'm just admiring Sarah's commitment. Not many women would trust their entire financial future to someone else. I trust Marcus completely, Sarah said. The lie tasted bitter, but lies were survival now. After dinner, Sarah cleaned up in the kitchen. Through the wall, she heard Marcus and Vanessa in his study. Their voices were low, urgent. Sarah pressed her ear to the door. The Harrison Group sent a final notice, Vanessa hissed. If we don't pay by the 15th, they're filing criminal charges. I'll get Sarah's savings transferred this week. And then what? 200,000 is a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Silence. Then Marcus, so quiet Sarah almost missed it. There's always the permanent solution. Can you actually go through with that? Can you? Sarah's hand trembled on the doorframe. She pulled away, walked quietly upstairs, and locked herself in the bathroom. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking, and recorded a voice memo. October 15th, Marcus and Vanessa are planning something. I think they're going to kill me for the insurance money. I have proof. I have recordings. If anything happens to me, check the life insurance policy. Check who benefits from my death. Her voice cracked on the last word. She saved the file, backed it up to a cloud storage Marcus didn't know about, and sent the password to Rebecca. Then she looked at herself in the mirror, 6 months pregnant, financially dependent, physically vulnerable, legally unprotected, trapped. The baby kicked hard against her ribs. Sarah placed her hand over the movement. I'll get us out, she whispered. I promise, I'll get us both out. But she had no idea how. Marcus made his move on a Saturday morning. Sarah was reading pregnancy books in bed when he came in with coffee and croissants from her favorite bakery. I need to talk to you about something, he said, sitting beside her. Sarah's stomach clenched. Nothing good ever followed those words. The Prestige Heights project is at a critical juncture, Marcus continued. We have an opportunity to bring in a major investor, but we need to show capital commitment first. Okay, Sarah said slowly. I was thinking about your savings. The 200,000 you've been keeping separate. There it was. Sarah forced her face to stay neutral. What about it? If we invested it in the project, even temporarily, it would demonstrate our financial stability. We'd triple the money within 6 months. You'd be a full partner. Sarah thought about the collection notices, the threatening letters, the insurance policy. That's my emergency fund, Marcus. It's all I have left. His jaw tightened. All you have left? What happened to what's mine is yours? That's not what I meant. It sounds like you don't trust me. His voice went cold. After everything I've done for you, the house, the car, taking care of you while you're pregnant, and you don't trust me with money? I do trust you. Then prove it. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. The man she'd loved was gone, or maybe he'd never existed. Maybe this calculating, manipulative person was who Marcus had always been. But she was 6 months pregnant. She had nowhere to go. No job, no income, no support system, and he knew it. Okay, Sarah said quietly. I'll transfer the money. Marcus's face transformed. He smiled, kissed her forehead, pulled her close. You won't regret this. I promise. We're partners now. In everything. That afternoon, Sarah transferred $200,000 from her private account to Marcus's business account. She watched her balance drop to $342. Everything she'd saved from 7 years of work. Gone. Marcus took her to dinner that night to celebrate. Expensive restaurant. Champagne for him, sparkling water for her. He held her hand across the table, told her how proud he was, how perfect they were together. Sarah smiled and nodded and died a little inside. When they got home, She went straight to the bathroom and sent Rebecca a message from a burner email account she'd created at the library. He took everything. All my money. I'm trapped. Please help. Rebecca's response came 30 minutes later. I'm coming to Chicago. Don't tell him. I'm bringing help. Sarah's world got smaller every day. Marcus suggested she stop seeing her friend Jennifer. She's always so negative about our relationship. That kind of energy isn't good for the baby. He moved her into the master bedroom. So I can take care of you at night. The master bedroom had security cameras. For safety, he said, he added a tracking app to her phone. So I'll know if something happens to you. He could see every place she went, every person she contacted. The cage was closing. Sarah felt it in her bones. She started taking walks in the afternoon, the only time she was alone. She'd walk to the library, use their computers, email Rebecca updates. Marcus never questioned it. Pregnant women were supposed to exercise. What he didn't know was that Sarah was documenting everything, taking photos of documents, recording conversations, building a case. If he was planning to kill her, she was planning to expose him. 2 weeks after the money transfer, Sarah's brother called. Their mother had died, peacefully, in her sleep. The funeral was in 3 days. Sarah collapsed. Her mother had been sick for months, but Sarah thought there was more time. Time to say goodbye. Time to introduce her to her grandchild. She called Marcus at work, sobbing. I need to go to the funeral. It's in Iowa. Can you take time off? Silence on the other end. Marcus? The doctor said strict bed rest after your last appointment. Travel isn't safe for the baby. It's my mother's funeral. I understand that. But is your grief more important than our child's life? Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sweetheart. Sometimes we have to make hard choices. She went to the funeral alone. Marcus let her, but only after calling her doctor and having her flight changed to one he approved. He tracked her phone the entire time, called every 3 hours. At her mother's graveside, Sarah stood with her brother and cried. Not just for her mother, for herself, for the life she'd lost, for the trap she couldn't escape. Her brother put his arm around her. Are you okay? He asked. You seem different. Sarah almost told him everything, almost begged him to hide her. But Marcus had made her brother his friend too. They played golf together, had drinks together. Marcus had isolated her perfectly. I'm fine, Sarah lied, just pregnant and grieving. She flew back to Chicago the next day. Marcus picked her up from the airport with flowers and sympathy that felt rehearsed. That night, Sarah found Vanessa's earring on her nightstand. Diamond, expensive, unmistakable. Vanessa had been in their bedroom, in their bed. Sarah held the earring, and something inside her finally broke. She wasn't going to be a victim. She was going to be a survivor. She just had to live long enough to fight back. Sarah's doctor's appointment was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. 28 weeks pregnant. Routine checkup. Marcus was supposed to come, but he had a last-minute meeting with investors. Take an Uber, he suggested. Safer than driving yourself. But Sarah's phone app wasn't working. Password changed. Marcus must have done it remotely. Another layer of control. She'd have to drive. She took Marcus's spare car, the older Mercedes he kept for errands. The drive to the medical center was 15 minutes on the highway. Light traffic, clear day. Sarah kept the radio off, rehearsing what she'd ask her doctor. Is it normal to feel this anxious during pregnancy? Is there a way to protect my baby if something happens to me? Can you document any injuries I might show up with in the future? She couldn't ask those questions directly. Marcus would find out. He always found out. Sarah merged onto the highway, settling into the middle lane. She thought about her mother's funeral, about the earring, about the $200,000 she'd never see again, about the insurance policy that made her worth more dead than alive. A truck passed on her left. Sarah checked her mirrors, maintaining speed. Then she saw the exit for the medical center. She pressed the brake pedal to slow down. Nothing happened. She pressed harder. The pedal went to the floor with no resistance. The car didn't slow. Sarah's heart stopped. She pumped the brakes. Nothing. 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 No, 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 no. She was doing 60 miles per hour. The exit was coming up fast. Cars ahead of her. The barrier on the right. She yanked the emergency brake. It barely slowed her. She swerved right, trying to take the exit. Too fast, way too fast. The car clipped the barrier with a scream of metal. Sarah's head snapped sideways. The world spun. She saw sky, then pavement, then sky again. The car hit the concrete divider head-on. The airbag exploded into her face. Glass shattered. Metal crunched. The car came to rest at a 45-degree angle against the barrier. Sarah's ears rang. Blood ran down her face. Every part of her body screamed. She put her hands on her belly, felt for movement. Nothing. No, please, no. Sirens in the distance, people running toward her. Voices she couldn't understand through the ringing. Someone opened her door, hands reached for her. My baby, Sarah gasped. Please, my baby. We've got you. Hold still. Don't move. The paramedic's face swam in and out of focus. Sarah tried to stay conscious, but darkness pulled at her. The last thing she heard before blacking out was her phone ringing. Marcus's ringtone. Sarah woke up in the ICU. Machines beeped around her. An IV ran into her arm. Monitors tracked her baby's heartbeat. That beautiful, steady heartbeat. She's alive, a nurse said, seeing Sarah's eyes open. Your baby's alive, but you're on strict bed rest. The impact caused placental separation. Any more stress could cause premature labor. Sarah's hands found her belly. The baby kicked weakly. Sarah started crying. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Marcus arrived an hour later. He looked perfect. Worried fiancé, loving partner. He held her hand and kissed her forehead and told the nurses how terrified he'd been. When they were alone, his mask dropped. The police report says driver error, he said calmly. You were speeding, lost control, crashed. My brakes failed, Marcus. Someone cut my brakes. He smiled, actually smiled. Prove it. The car's already at the scrapyard, totaled. Insurance is handling it. Sarah's blood went cold. You had the car destroyed? Standard procedure for vehicles that damaged. Besides, we don't need the reminder of your reckless driving. I wasn't. You were going 67 in a 55 zone, fam. The police have the data from your phone's GPS. You were distracted, not paying attention, careless. Sarah stared at him, at this stranger wearing her fiancé's face. You tried to kill me. That's a serious accusation. Based on what? Faulty brakes in a 15-year-old car? Accidents happen, Sarah, especially to distracted pregnant women who don't take care of themselves. He stood, straightened his jacket. The doctor says you need 6 weeks of bed rest. I've arranged for a home nurse, someone who'll make sure you follow doctor's orders. Make sure you don't do anything else reckless. A guard, Sarah realized. He was putting a guard in their house. I've also updated our phone plan and cloud storage. Everything backs up to my account now, for safety. And I transferred the rest of your personal account to our joint account. You won't need to worry about money while you're recovering. Sarah checked her phone. New password. She couldn't access anything. Her laptop. Password changed. Her bank account. $342. Gone. Marcus had digitally erased her. I love you, he said, kissing her forehead. I'm just trying to protect you. Protect our family. He left. Sarah lay in that hospital bed, trapped in her own body, and realized the truth. Marcus wasn't going to stage her death as an accident anymore. He was going to make it look like suicide. Depressed pregnant woman, lost her mother, financial stress, history of reckless behavior. It would be perfect. And no one would question it. Rebecca Thompson received Sarah's email at 11 at night New York time. She read it 3 times, hands shaking. She'd known Marcus was wrong from the beginning. Too charming, too perfect, too controlling in ways Sarah called romantic. But Sarah had been in love. Sarah had cut Rebecca out when she questioned him. Now Sarah was trapped, pregnant, penniless, and afraid for her life. Rebecca opened her laptop and started researching. Insurance policies, financial fraud, domestic abuse patterns, murder for profit. By 3 in the morning, she'd found the connection. James Crawford, real estate investor, lost $15 million in a failed development project with Marcus Reed 3 years ago. Marcus had declared bankruptcy. James never recovered his money, but James had been building a case ever since. Rebecca found his office address, downtown Chicago, law offices of Crawford and Associates. She booked a flight for the next morning. James Crawford didn't believe in coincidences, so when his receptionist told him a woman was here about Marcus Reed, unannounced with evidence, he cleared his schedule. Rebecca walked into his office carrying a canvas bag and determination. "I'm Rebecca Thompson. My friend Sarah Mitchell is engaged to Marcus Reed. I believe he's planning to kill her for insurance money, and I think you can help me stop him." James gestured to a chair. "Talk." Rebecca emptied the bag. Sarah had mailed her everything: journal entries, voice recordings, photos of documents, the insurance policy, bank transfers, the brake line inspection report Sarah had secretly ordered before the car was scrapped. "The brake lines were cut," Rebecca said, showing him the report. "Professional job, made to look like wear and tear, but the mechanic noted fresh metal shavings. Someone did this recently." James read through everything. His jaw tightened with every page. "He's escalating," James said. "First the financial isolation, then the car. The next attempt will be final." "Can you go to the police?" "With what? Suspicion? Everything here is circumstantial. The brake line report is from a mechanic, not law enforcement. The voice recordings could be taken out of context. The insurance policy is legal." "So we do nothing?" James looked at her. "I didn't say that. I said we can't go to the police yet. We need proof of intent. We need to catch him in the act." "He'll kill her." "Not if I'm watching. I've been investigating Marcus for 3 years. I know his patterns. I know his associates. I know his mistress." Rebecca leaned forward. "Vanessa Hartley, co-beneficiary on the insurance policy. Former trust fund princess who gambled everything on Marcus's failed project. She's as desperate as he is. Maybe more." James pulled up surveillance photos on his computer. Marcus and Vanessa meeting at construction sites, restaurants, hotels. "I've had him under surveillance for 6 months, waiting for him to make a mistake big enough to prosecute. This might be it." "What do we do?" James looked at the evidence spread across his desk, at Sarah's journal entries, at her desperate, terrified handwriting. "We watch him, we record everything. And when he makes his move, we make sure he fails. And if we're too late," James's eyes went cold, "we won't be. I've waited 3 years for Marcus Reed to destroy himself. I'm not missing the show." 2 days later, James had surveillance on Marcus's house, his office, and the Prestige Heights construction site. Sarah was home from the hospital on bed rest with a nurse Marcus had hired. The nurse reported Sarah's every movement to Marcus: what she ate, how much she slept, who called. Perfect control. But James was watching too. He saw Marcus meet Vanessa at the construction site at midnight, saw them walk through the abandoned building, examining scaffolding, testing rope. James's investigator had planted audio devices throughout the site. The recordings were crystal clear. "The baby's due in 2 weeks, Vanessa said. "We're running out of time." "I know. The Harrison Group is threatening criminal charges. If we don't pay soon, we're both going to prison for fraud." "Then we need to accelerate the timeline." "How do we make it look natural?" "The car accident failed. She's suspicious now." Vanessa ran her hand along a length of rope hanging from the scaffolding. "Suicide, postpartum depression. It happens all the time. Nobody questions it." "She's not postpartum yet." "Close enough. 8 months pregnant, just lost her mother, financially stressed, isolated. The narrative writes itself." Marcus tested the rope. It held his weight. "Here?" he asked. "Storm's coming Friday. Rain, thunder, low visibility. Bring her here. Make it look like she drove herself. Stage it like she couldn't take it anymore." "What about the baby?" Vanessa's voice went flat. "Acceptable loss." James listened to the recording 3 times, his hands clenched into fists. He had conspiracy to commit murder. Premeditation. Intent. But he needed more. He needed them to act. Because without the attempt, any lawyer could argue they were just venting, just talking. He needed Marcus and Vanessa to try to kill Sarah, and he needed to save her when they did. James called Rebecca that night. "I have them on tape planning her murder. Friday night, during the storm. We go to the police now. Not enough. Conspiracy charges might not stick. They'll get bail. They'll disappear. I need them caught in the act. You're using Sarah as bait. I'm giving her a chance to testify against them, to put them away forever. You think Marcus stops if we arrest him now? He'll make bail. He'll finish the job the minute he's free. Rebecca was silent. I'll be there, James continued. I'll have security. The moment he touches her, I move. She won't die, but we need attempted murder, not just conspiracy. She doesn't know about this plan. She can't know. Marcus is monitoring everything. Her phone, her computer, her movements. If she acts differently, he'll know something's wrong. You're gambling with her life. I'm gambling with his freedom. Sarah chose to document everything, to build evidence, to fight back. I'm just making sure her fight means something. Rebecca closed her eyes. If she dies, she won't, I promise you. I won't let her die. But promises, Rebecca knew, weren't guarantees. She just had to hope James Crawford was as good as he claimed. Sarah's mother's funeral arrangements had been handled remotely. Sarah hadn't been allowed to participate. Too stressful, Marcus said. Bad for the baby. 3 days after she got home from the hospital, Sarah received a box in the mail. Her mother's personal effects. The ones her brother couldn't bear to keep. Photo albums, jewelry, letters Sarah had written home from college. Sarah sat in bed, going through memories, crying until she had nothing left. Marcus came home and found her like that. Red-eyed, exhausted, grieving. You need to rest, he said, taking the box away. This isn't healthy. I want to say goodbye. Please, let me have a memorial service. Something small. The doctor said bed rest, no exceptions. My mother died and I can't even. Your mother is gone. Our baby is alive. Which one matters more? Sarah stared at him. The cruelty was so casual now, he didn't even bother hiding it. I want to call my brother. Your brother has his own grief. You don't need to burden him with yours. He's my family. I'm your family now, me and the baby. That's all you need. That night, Sarah tried to call her brother anyway. Her phone wouldn't connect. Marcus had blocked the number. She tried to email. Marcus's password was required for every account. She was completely cut off. Sarah lay in the dark, feeling the baby move inside her, and understood with perfect clarity Marcus was going to kill her soon, very soon, before the baby came, before she could recover enough to fight back. She had one chance, one opportunity. She had to fake compliance, make him think she'd given up, make him think she was broken. Then, when he made his move, she had to survive long enough for someone to find the evidence, the voice recordings, the journal entries, the emails to Rebecca. Someone would find them. Someone would know the truth, even if Sarah didn't live to tell it herself. Friday came with warnings, storm advisories, tornado watches. The sky turned green by afternoon. Sarah's contractions started at 6 p.m. Early, 8 weeks early, she called for Marcus. The nurse checked her, face pale. We need to get you to the hospital, now. Marcus appeared in the doorway, perfectly calm. I'll drive. It's faster than an ambulance. The nurse hesitated. Sir, with the storm, I know the fastest route. Get her in the car. They loaded Sarah into the passenger seat. The nurse tried to come, but Marcus stopped her. No room. Follow in your car. We'll meet you there. He pulled out before the nurse could argue. Sarah watched the road through pain and panic. The hospital was east. Marcus was driving west. Marcus, the hospital is the other way. Taking a shortcut, highways flooded. But they weren't heading toward any hospital. Sarah saw the sign, Prestige Heights Development, construction zone. Her blood went cold. Marcus, where are we going? He didn't answer, just kept driving as rain started to fall. Lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the car. Sarah's contractions were coming faster now. 7 minutes apart, 6, Marcus pulled into the construction site. Vanessa's car was already there, headlights cutting through the rain. Sarah tried to open her door. Child lock, she was trapped. Marcus, please, the baby. I need a hospital. He got out, walked around, opened her door. Rain soaked him instantly. I know, he said. His voice was empty, dead. I know what you need. He pulled her out of the car. Sarah screamed. Vanessa appeared holding something. Rope. Sarah's legs gave out. Marcus dragged her toward the scaffolding, toward the rope already tied in a noose. You were supposed to be easy, Marcus said over the thunder. Compliant, grateful, but you kept asking questions, kept documenting things. You made this necessary. Vanessa tied Sarah's hands. Professional, efficient. She'd done this before, Sarah realized, or planned it so many times it felt like muscle memory. The insurance, Sarah gasped. You won't get away with it. Depressed pregnant woman, Vanessa recited. Recent loss, financial stress, drove to isolated location during storm, suicide by hanging, classic case. Marcus slipped the noose over Sarah's head. His hands shook. For the first time, Sarah saw fear in his eyes. You're not strong enough to be a father, Sarah said, looking directly at him. You never were. That's why you're killing your own child. Something in Marcus snapped. Rage flooded his face. Do it, Vanessa hissed. Now, before someone comes. Marcus positioned Sarah on the crate under the scaffolding. The rope tightened around her neck. Sarah closed her eyes, thought of her mother, her baby, the life she'd never get to live. Vanessa kicked the crate. Sarah dropped. The rope caught. Her neck snapped back. Pain exploded through her throat. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't scream. Her baby kicked once, twice, then went still. Sarah's vision darkened. She heard Marcus and Vanessa arguing, running, car doors slamming, then headlights. Bright, blinding. Someone was coming. Everything went black. James Crawford's SUV crashed through the construction fence doing 70 miles per hour. He'd been following Marcus since he left the house, waiting for this exact moment. He saw Sarah's body hanging from the scaffolding, saw Marcus and Vanessa running for their cars. Block them, he shouted to his security team. Nobody leaves. James was out of the car before it fully stopped. He sprinted through rain and mud, grabbed his knife, climbed the scaffolding. Sarah's face was blue, her body was limp. The rope had been up for maybe 90 seconds. Too long, way too long. He cut the rope. She fell into his arms, dead weight. James laid her on the ground, tilted her head back, checked for breathing. Nothing. He started compressions. Hard, fast, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rain hammered his fists. Lightning lit up Sarah's blue lips. Come on, fight. Your baby's fighting. Fight with her. He breathed for her, once, twice. Back to compressions. Behind him, his security team tackled Marcus and Vanessa. There were screams, curses, threats. James ignored everything, focused on Sarah, on saving her. He felt a kick against his hand during a compression. The baby, still alive, still fighting. That's it. That's it. Your daughter's not giving up. Don't you give up. He breathed for her again, pressed her chest. Again, again. Sarah's eyes flew open. She gasped, coughing water and air. Her hands went to her throat, then her belly. James grabbed his phone. I need an ambulance and police at Prestige Heights construction site. Attempted murder. Pregnant victim. She's breathing. Sarah stared at him through the rain. Recognition flickered. James Crawford, he said. I've been watching Marcus. I have everything on tape. You're safe now. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus was screaming from where security held him pinned. She's insane. She tried to kill herself. We were trying to stop her. Vanessa was crying. It was his idea. He made me help him. I didn't want to. James pulled out his phone, played the recording of their planning session. Vanessa's voice crystal clear. Suicide, postpartum depression. The narrative writes itself. Marcus's voice. What about the baby? Vanessa. Acceptable loss. The cops arrived, cuffed them both, read them their rights while they screamed at each other. You said there was no evidence. You promised this would work. I'm not going to prison for you. The ambulance pulled up. Paramedics rushed to Sarah. James stayed with her until they loaded her in. Why did you save me? Sarah whispered, throat raw. James looked at her, really looked at her. Because I needed you alive to testify, he said honestly. And because nobody deserves to hang with a man like him. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. My baby? She's still fighting, just like her mother, and they loaded Sarah into the ambulance. James climbed in beside her. As they pulled away, James saw Marcus and Vanessa being pushed into separate police cars, still screaming, still blaming each other. Their partnership was over. Their freedom was over. Their lives were over. And Sarah's was just beginning. 3 months later, Sarah sat in her apartment holding Hope, her daughter, 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect, born by emergency C-section the night James saved her life. Hope had her mother's eyes, Sarah's determination, Sarah's will to survive. The news was on. Marcus's face filled the screen. His lawyer was doing a press tour. My client was manipulated by Vanessa Hartley, a dangerous woman with sociopathic tendencies. Marcus Reed is a victim, not a criminal. He was coerced into participating in what he believed was an intervention for his suicidal fiancée. The narrative was working. Marcus's PR firm was excellent. They'd reframed everything. Marcus as the foolish man who fell for the wrong woman. Vanessa as the fatal attraction villain. Public opinion was split. Half the internet thought Marcus was evil. The other half thought he was a victim. The charges had been reduced to conspiracy while they awaited trial. Both Marcus and Vanessa were out on bail, with separate lawyers, separate stories, destroying each other in the press. Sarah watched Marcus on TV looking handsome and broken, talking about trauma and manipulation. Her phone rang. Rebecca. Have you seen the news? I'm watching it now. There's more. Marcus got a job, CEO of Harrison Real Estate Group, the same company he defrauded. They made a deal. Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. What kind of deal? He's giving them ownership stake in Prestige Heights in exchange for dropping the fraud charges. And he's throwing a launch party tomorrow night at the Penthouse. Let me guess, Vanessa's invited. She's co-hosting. They're presenting as business partners, like nothing happened, like they didn't try to murder you. Sarah looked at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her arms. He's parading her, Sarah said quietly, showing the world he's untouchable. What are you going to do? Sarah thought about the voice recordings, the evidence, the photos, everything she documented. She thought about the insurance policy, the attempted murder, the baby Marcus had been willing to kill. She thought about every woman who'd ever been trapped, controlled, erased. I'm going to walk in, Sarah said, and steal his fucking spotlight. Prestige Heights Penthouse, Friday night, 200 guests, Chicago's elite, press everywhere. Champagne Towers, string quartet. Sarah sent Hope to stay with Rebecca, put on a white dress, the same white dress she'd worn the night Marcus tried to hang her. She'd had it cleaned, repaired. It fit perfectly. She styled her hair, did her makeup, looked in the mirror and saw someone different. Not a victim, a survivor. James Crawford picked her up at 7. Behind him, 30 investors Marcus had defrauded, all of them with evidence. All of them ready to testify. You sure about this? James asked. I've never been more sure of anything. They arrived at 8. The party was in full swing. Marcus stood center stage in a Tom Ford suit, arm around Vanessa in a red Valentino gown. They looked like power, like success, like they'd won. Marcus was giving a speech. Tonight represents a new chapter. I've learned that resilience isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about rising from them. Vanessa and I have built something extraordinary here, and with the Harrison Group's backing, the elevator doors opened. Sarah stepped out. The room went silent. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. Conversations died mid-sentence. Sarah walked forward, holding Hope in her arms. Behind her, James and the investors. Every step was deliberate. Every movement was power. She reached the stage. Marcus's face drained of color. Vanessa's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattered on marble. Sarah took the microphone from Marcus's frozen hand. Marcus Reed just told you about resilience, Sarah said, her voice clear and strong. Let me tell you about survival. The screens behind her lit up. James's team had prepared everything. Voice recordings, Marcus and Vanessa planning her murder. Bank transfers, Marcus draining Sarah's accounts. CCTV footage. Marcus cutting her brake lines. The photo. Vanessa holding the rope. Marcus filming. Gasps. Phones out. recording, live streaming. Sarah lifted Hope higher. 3 months ago, this man hung me from scaffolding while I was 8 months pregnant. He thought I'd die quietly. He thought I'd disappear. He thought wrong. Marcus tried to grab the microphone. This is defamation. James stepped forward, handed him a legal document. Civil suit, attempted murder, fraud, emotional distress, $50 million. And criminal charges were refiled this morning with new evidence. Vanessa's face went white. Marcus, you said there was no evidence. You said, shut up, Marcus hissed. The crowd murmured. Phones everywhere. The video was already going viral. Sarah turned to face them both. You paraded your mistress like she was your prize. Like I was nothing. She removed her engagement ring, dropped it at Marcus's feet. But the only prize you're getting, Marcus, is 25 to life. Police entered from 3 doors. They'd been waiting for James's signal. Handcuffs clicked on Marcus's wrists, on Vanessa's. Marcus struggled. Sarah, please. We can work this out. I love you. I was sick. I need help. Sarah looked at him one last time. You're not sick, Marcus. You're just weak. Too weak to be a father. Too weak to be a man, and definitely too weak to break me. She handed Hope to Rebecca, turned to the stunned crowd. Enjoy your party. I have a daughter to put to bed. She walked out. Cameras followed. The footage would have 47 million views by morning. Behind her, Marcus and Vanessa screamed at each other while police dragged them away. This is your fault. You promised me. I'm not going to prison for you, bah. The engagement ring lay alone on the marble floor, reflecting camera flashes. Sarah didn't look back. She'd already moved on. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Every major news network covered it. The evidence was overwhelming. Voice recordings, video footage, financial records. Testimony from James's investigators. Testimony from the mechanic who'd examined Sarah's brake lines. Testimony from Sarah herself. Marcus tried to blame Vanessa. Vanessa tried to blame Marcus. Their stories contradicted each other so completely that the jury didn't believe either of them. Marcus Reed, convicted of attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. 28 years, no parole. Vanessa Hartley, convicted of first-degree attempted murder, 35 years. They were sent to separate federal facilities. They'd never see each other again. The civil suit was settled. Marcus's estate was liquidated. Sarah was awarded $4.2 million. She didn't keep a penny. 2 years later, Sarah stood in her art gallery in downtown Chicago. Hope and Resilience, it was called. Every piece was created by a domestic violence survivor. Hope was 3 now, running around, giggling, drawing rainbows with crayons. Sarah led workshops 3 times a week, 15 women at a time, all ages, all backgrounds. Financial independence is your exit strategy, Sarah told them. Open accounts he doesn't know about. Document everything. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are surviving, and survival is an act of revolution. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. My name is Rachel. My boyfriend controls all my money. I don't know how to leave. Can you help? Sarah looked at Hope, drawing a picture of them holding hands. She typed back, yes, you're not alone anymore. Come to the gallery tomorrow, 10 a.m. There's a whole community waiting for you. James entered with coffee and a gift bag. Hope's birthday present, he said. And the final settlement check. Marcus's estate liquidation is complete. He handed her an envelope. 4.2 million for the sum. Sarah handed it back without opening it. Put it in the foundation. Every penny. I don't want anything from that life. James smiled. They'd become friends over the past 2 years. Partners in helping other women escape situations like Sarah's. You know you went viral, right? Woman walks into party, destroys husband, 47 million views. Sarah laughed. Free. Genuine. I wasn't trying to destroy him. I was just taking back what was always mine. Hope ran up, showed Sarah her drawing. A woman and a little girl holding hands under a rainbow. Who are they, baby? That's you and me, Mommy. We're safe now. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She hugged her daughter tight. The gallery filled with women, laughing, sharing stories, healing together. On the wall hung a massive poster, the photo from that night. Sarah walking into the party, holding hope, head high. Text overlay, nobody hangs alone anymore. Sarah looked around her gallery, at the art, at the women, her daughter. This was her empire, built not on money or power, but on survival and community. Marcus had tried to erase her. Instead, she'd erased him from her life completely. She'd taken the darkest moment of her life and turned it into light for the others. That was the real revenge. Not destroying Marcus, but refusing to let him destroy her. Sarah picked up Hope, kissed her forehead. Come on, baby, let's go home. They walked out together, hand in hand, into a future Sarah had built herself. Free, safe, unbreakable. The spotlight had always been hers. She just needed to step into it, and now she was never stepping out.